The average age of a college student athlete, the average age is 21.9 years or 22 years old. That's up 2 years from 2022-23. Hello and welcome. The big question on the table, college athletics, the landscape is changing. College athletics, the student athletes are getting older. And parents have this kind of uneasiness about the role of the high school athlete. And so I wanted to do this the correct way. And so what I'm going to do is do this in two parts. So this evening we'll hear from a coach, a very well-respected coach, someone that's been in the world of postgraduate or prep school athletics and college placement as a college advisor at an elite high school that's been around for centuries. And then we'll have a student athlete that attended a postgraduate school in 2014, 12 years later. Was it worth it? First and foremost, welcome. We're doing a little holiday edition of our ProLine live Q&A. So if you have a question at any point, whether for myself or ultimately Coach Pat Moriarty, current head coach at Deerfield Academy, please feel free to put that onto the screen. I will make sure that I take the time to address your question. One of the things that when I go and I post something on social media, obviously it's very one-dimensional. There's no tone, there's no inflection, and sometimes it lacks a full understanding of what the topic is really all about. And so what I am attempting to do over these next two nights is really fill in the blanks for you as parents and obviously for student athletes. And I always get asked, what kind of backup information do you have, the data that will validate anything you're saying? Because these scare tactics have been going on for decades. Or I will get parents that will say, well, I am certainly not going to delay the inevitable and try to chase the crazy world of athletics because, inevitably we all have to move on in life and we have blah, blah, blah. Here's the deal. The college experience is a collection of independent, valuable resources that help your student athlete mature into a young man or woman. That's a fact. They leave childhood behind as they leave high school and they become young adults as they begin to get into their upper class years in college. 2 years ago, the year was 2024, and the average college softball or baseball player, the average age of that student athlete was 20 years old. More precisely, if you're going to run to Google, you'll find that it's 20 and 1 month. Today, it is 22. 2 years, the average age has gone up 2 years. Okay, well, you may want to say, okay, well, obviously that's somewhat still reasonable. It's not 25 like you keep telling us. No, again, the average. So if we're talking 24 to 20, the average 22. Well, if we listen to all of the chatter, much like 3-4 years ago when we started to talk about name, image, and likeness and transfer portal and the boogeyman, all of those changes happened. And when they happened, those that were prepared were able to make their decisions, choose their path. Those that didn't ended up having to chase and try to find that last chair. And so, what I'm trying to really explain to parents is when we talk about reclassification or we talk about postgraduate schools, what I want you to truly begin to understand is this is more than more than athletics. This is not baseball specific. It is all sports. Some of the changes that are going to be occurring, whether now someone put a nice message, I'll say nice because I don't want to say a mean spirited direct message. Post grad and prep schools simply are a part. If you, as a parent or a student athlete, value academics. Now, some people, their own opinions, they don't really worry too much about academics. Those are the people that will say to us, the last thing the world needs is another sports management graduate degree or another degree in business marketing. Okay, that's a story for another time. But if we're all, being adults here and a certain segment of our group is really interested in academics on a bigger scale, meaning we value the academic process, we value the higher levels academics and possibly not only an undergraduate degree but a graduate degree. The world of prep school, boarding schools, and that's where those types of schools come in handy. But let's start here. What is the role, or what should the role of prep school, reclassing, and postgrad play with your family's decisions with regard to academics and athletics? Now, for 38 years, I have led, I have walked it and I have talked it, um, forwards, backwards, sideways, athletic ability for academic excellence. It's not just a mission statement. It's just not a slogan. I never received a college degree. I'm not considered to be an educated man. Okay. And that did not allow me to pursue certain, um, you know, vocations or business opportunities. Even as a coach, they wanted you to have a 4-year degree, and if you wanted to coach at the Division 1 level, they preferred a master's, a graduate degree. I do not have a college degree. Therefore, I wanted my boys to be a little bit more than just athletes. I didn't want them just to be identified as baseball players. Did we love sports? Absolutely. Did we love baseball? You betcha. Um, but I really felt strongly and expressed to those that were asking at the time, I wanted my boys to try to trade athletic ability for academic opportunities throughout their entire life. Now, my sons are now 33 and 35, or soon to be 33. Now, my youngest attended Lawrence Academy his junior year. So he reclassified. Now, he could have repeated his sophomore year. He left a public high school in Auburn, Massachusetts, in 2009. In the spring of 2009, in the fall of 2009, he started his junior year at Lawrence Academy in Groton, Massachusetts. In hindsight, I wish, and I think to some degree he wishes, he may have repeated his sophomore year, having nothing to do with baseball skill sets. Oh, by the way, he played as a freshman at Vanderbilt University, a starting pitchers for all 3 years that he attended Vanderbilt as a student athlete. He subsequently graduated while playing professionally. So it worked out for my youngest son, Tyler. But we did not make the decision to go to Lawrence Academy because of baseball. We had already decided and discussed as a family that we felt the role of academics was going to play a large role in this case, my son Tyler, at either Vanderbilt, UVA, Duke. So those three schools, and it came down to UVA and Vanderbilt because of the strength of the academics, the network, the student body, the faculty, the campus, the culture, the strength that that degree would offer my son as he moved away from a career in baseball, um, and ventured into adulthood, which he is in now. And during that time of making that decision, our number one goal was to allow my son at the time to expand his group of friends, his network within his high school age group, his peer group. The faculty was global, the student body was global, and we really felt that the structure academically would help, um, really truly prepare. So that's really where we want to start. Is these schools are going to offer total preparation for a student to truly be prepared for the workload that awaits them as student athletes within college. Now, this can be any sport. I want to make sure I'm really clear on this. This can be any sport. I have been talking with parents of lacrosse and soccer and softball. And this topic comes up about reclassification. It's almost like you have to whisper it, what about reclassing? Well, my recruiting service told me it was a waste of time and it wasn't necessary. Or my current high school tells me that's not necessary. Well, that's fine. And I respect all of their opinions. But again, what is the real goal for you as parents and obviously as student athletes? What are you attempting to do with regard to the role that college plays for your child?
And I'm a product of a PG year. So
Right.
I went to high school, very rural high school. I wasn't as mature as I needed to be. Mom and dad didn't go to college, but they had the wherewithal to say, this young man needs another year. So I took another year. I can't tell you. I listen. More than anything, and I'm at a school that prides itself on private school education. there's been more there's two rooms in this university that have helped kids get to levels that they never thought they could get to. One of them is the classroom. The second one is the weight room. The weight room, I think, goes without saying. When you start doing things physically and from a fitness standpoint that you've never done before, your self-esteem and your confidence grows. But more than anything, the mind drives the body. And the mind, when you develop the mind and you start to developing mental skill sets that you didn't think you had, then your confidence moves to levels that you've never seen a young man ever before develop. I've seen it for 42 years. I've seen certain kids, whether it's your son or David Price or Fulmer or Bueller or Sonny Gray, you go on and on and on. Austin Martin. I mean, Austin Martin wasn't your typical Vanderbilt student, but Austin Martin became a pretty damn good Vanderbilt student by the time he left. I just think that they equip themselves with so many social and humanistic skills that aren't in the classroom. Um, I, I just think it's for the benefit of them and their baseball playing abilities.
Not how hard did they throw, how far can they hit a baseball, not how big they are or how fast they are. Just what role will college play for my student athlete um, moving forward? Now, you can say, well, he's not really that smart or he's not a 1400 SAT. Again, these schools offer, diversity in every dynamic and aspect of life, and it allows your student, your child, to become the best possible version of themselves that they would like to obtain or attain. And I always try to get parents to understand when Tyler attended Lawrence Academy as a 16-year-old, he graduated high school. 17 and then turned 18 2 days later. He was shy. He was not really what I would say was very orally inclined with regard to speaking in front of the class or speaking in front of teams. Um, and he became very comfortable with that. And he speaks very well now. And he became comfortable with being uncomfortable. And his number one teacher was Dr. Fagelbaum, a theater faculty member from NYU that retired to Groton, Massachusetts, and became part of the faculty at Lawrence Academy. Wasn't a baseball coach, although he's very close with Chris Margraf at Lawrence Academy. Wasn't an English teacher, math teacher, social studies, theater, that challenged Tyler to really become more engaged and really allow himself to grow as a speaker. And I really found that fascinating, still do to this day. So the role of these prep schools and postgraduate schools, it's bigger than just sports. So let's start there. That's topic number one. And before we bring Coach Moriarty out, topic number two is it for everybody? No, it's not. My oldest son would not have been successful there. And I recognize that. It's not because I don't think it would have allowed him the same opportunities that Tyler had, but I feel that Kyle would have been overwhelmed. But sometimes there are decisions in life that may be uncomfortable, and you want to be proactive as opposed to reactive. And so let's assume, for the sake of this discussion, as it relates to academics, it will definitely be more challenging in the classroom. It will definitely be more structured with regard to books and paper, writing, curriculum may be a little bit more challenging. They do have staff that is available and, for the students that need that extra study time, study hall, tutoring, peer tutoring, faculty tutoring, et cetera. They have all sorts of support mechanisms in place, much like college does, for all students, not just student athletes. The other part of this is you are allowing your students, your children, to get a broader view, academically and socially, at a global type of student body. We're not going to talk about Division I and Division I scholarships. We're talking all levels of college, all levels of college. And my guest today is going to help me present both sides of this topic. And I really am excited. I could speak on a number of different coaches, but my next guest is Pat Moriarty, who's currently the head coach at Deerfield Academy and has been for the last 9 years. Prior to Pat taking over at Deerfield, Deerfield was a prestigious, academic, highly successful football, hockey, multitude of sports at the prep school level. Baseball, a little bit not as strong, and now they are New England contenders. But my hope tonight is for parents to ask questions of Pat as it pertains to the value, the collective value of the prep school postgraduate year process. And without further ado, there he is, Coach Pat Moriarty. Coach, how are you today?
Good. How are you, Walter? Thank you for having me. I really appreciate all that you do for all this information. This is great stuff. Parents and players, I'm looking forward to a good evening tonight with you all.
Now, I feel that Coach Moriarty offers some valuable insight and information on this process. So let's start with a Deerfield Academy. Now, when you start to talk about going there 9 years ago, talk about the ages, talk about the campus. Let's not focus on baseball. Let's just talk about the campus, where students and faculty are generally from.
Yeah, so Deerfield's a school of 650 students. We're represented by 45 different countries and 38 different states. So a lot of diversity here. Teaching faculty here are second to none. Really, really bright people that not only care about students in the classroom, but care about students in the dorm, care about students in social settings. Most classrooms here are 12 students or less. And I think that's very similar across the board. Walter mentioned earlier tonight, Choate, Loomis, Cheshire, Salisbury, all great schools. As you start to look into these schools, I would say that it'd be much like the college process, college admissions process, maybe just a year earlier or a couple of years earlier, where families, you should be looking for fit. You shouldn't be looking for a coach or successful program, but looking for fit, someplace that your son can grow socially, academically, and athletically.
The most misunderstood dynamic is a lot of times parents will say, "Oh boy, I cannot afford that. I really think my son or my daughter are really, bright academically. I would love for them to be challenged." Talk a little bit about that dynamic, not only at Deerfield, but most of the schools of the similar, ilk, as far as like whether they're in Connecticut or Andover, Exeter, or Taft, anything along those lines. Talk a little bit about some of the opportunities from a financial aid or that type of a program that does allow those types of students that are academic / athletically orientated, not just athletes, but if you're a fit for a certain school, they do have processes to help make it affordable.
Sure. Yeah. I would never be deterred by the sticker price. And I know on Deerfield's website, and I'm sure they're on every website, we have sort of what would be a net price calculator. So, based on family income, you should expect to pay this amount. We have an initiative recently passed here at Deerfield for families that make less than $150,000 combined. That those students come here for zero, for free. And then sort of working off that 150,000 and plus or more, typically roughly 10% of that income. So I know that's a Deerfield model. I don't really want to speak to other models, but I understand the question, Walter. And I would say that, again, talk to the financial aid offices. Most schools will, admit students based on what they can pay. I think the families that can pay full price are typically families that are making, upwards of $600,000, $700,000, $800,000.
One of the dynamics of this process that you just alluded to, you just kind of touched on, talk about, this isn't just for the junior or senior in high school. There are programs now, in some cases, the schools start as young as the 7th grade. Some it's the freshman year. But talk a little bit about, it's the girls, the boys. It's not just the, hey, you have to be a junior or a senior in high school and then you want to reclass. Sometimes students reclass, other times they don't. Talk about, when you mention right fit, it's really truly about the fit and the opportunity.
It is in the fit, and I'll use Roxbury Latin as an example here. A school that's really, really selective and rigorous, and a great academic program there, and it's in a pretty good baseball program as of late, especially. At a school like Roxbury Latin, probably your best and only way to get in there is 7th and or 8th grade. After that, they really don't add to grades. For a school like Deerfield and most others are grade 9 through post-grad. So, we'll take, our biggest class will always be our 9th grade class, typically about 110 students, 55 boys, 55 girls or females. And we'll typically add, roughly 30 new 10th graders, 30 new 11th graders, and about 30 new 12th graders and or postgraduates. Backtracking again a little to the middle school, sorry, I might have left this out, is that some schools, again, will reclass, in the middle school as well. So whether you're talking about a post-grad year, which is basically repeating your 12th grade year, reclassification is allowed at any grade, I think 7 through 12. So people choose to reclass at different times. I know with each of my children, I reclassed them each at ninth grade. So they went to a private middle school for seventh, eighth, and ninth, and then they reclassified and came here to Deerfield.
So can you talk about some of the reasons or rationales that might be associated with the reclassing dynamic before we go down the post-grad world? Like, what are some of the reasons over and above athletics that families would choose to want to reclass their students?
Yeah, I always, and it's not a requirement here. I don't know if any school requires it, but it's always starts with the simple question: is what's the rush? I think first and foremost, but secondly, I talk to people about being a year older, developing more academically, socially and athletically. I think of reclassifying, allowing reclassifying will allow students an extra year of math, an extra year of possibly history and or science, an extra year to grow smarter and a little more savvy when it comes to possibly taking an SAT or an ACT. And lastly, I think athletics is always sort of last, although maybe first in our minds here, is more of a physical, mature player during the recruiting stages and when the student athlete actually gets to college. A 19-year-old or a 20-year-old, maybe a 21-year-old by the time they actually get to college, as in comparison to an 18-year-old or 17-year-old.
One of the things that I always, when I start to talk with parents or people, when I engage on social media, which has become, I don't know, combative. I can't think of a better word, but sometimes people will want to get a rise out of me and they'll say, well, we don't want to see 25-year-old college athletes. Why do I want to see a 19-year-old high school athlete, that's going to be turning 20? But in reality, from a ability to handle and manage the workload that is required of college students, and then on top of that, college student athletes, the reclass and the postgrad kind of share a little bit about how that helps truly prepare the student being able to handle and manage that workload when they do ultimately get to college.
Yeah, I think again, maturity. I think of time management. I think of living independently. Having to do your laundry. Figuring out when to say yes to your friends. Yeah, I want to go watch the basketball game, even though I've got a lot of homework. Or no, I don't want to go watch that basketball game or that hockey game on a Friday night or a Wednesday night. I've got to stay behind and I've got to get work done. So it's being able to manage your time. It's being able to I like the students that give it a really good try before they ask their teachers for help, but knowing when to sort of work independently and try to, I guess, grind through certain assignments, as opposed to saying, you know what, I really don't understand this material. I need to ask for help. I need to go to extra help or reach out to this teacher. So I think it's finding your voice. I think it's managing your time. I think it's just maturing overall and knowing how to live independently at one of these schools.
So a couple of things that I want to give to some parents, because every single person that engaged with me recently on social media was looking for data. Like, do you have data to back this up? So I actually do. So we're going to start with a couple of things that I really want parents to understand in why this topic is not a phase or a trend. This has been going around for decades, if not centuries, as far as the reclass and the postgraduate world. First thing is I want to let you know, as I alluded to earlier, the average age of a college student athlete, the average age is 21.9 years or 22 years old. That's up 2 years from 2022-23. Next, I want to let parents know that when we start talking about the all-powerful playing time, last year in 2025, freshmen only took 12.6% of the at-bats and only pitched 15% of the total innings. That's in college baseball. That's not Division I, that's not Division II, that's all of college baseball. And last but not least, I want to let you know that roster composition, the trends, the way the world is shifting with regard to college athletics is older athletes. Obviously, the portal plays a role in that. Obviously, junior colleges play a role in that. But what we used to have, say, over the last 20 years, when my children were going through this process, and maybe Pat, you can touch on this, earlier recruiting really added fuel to the fire with regard to my son is 14 and being recruited by, this school or that school. Those days are over. And so, what used to be considered like an epidemic and everybody was running as a freshman and, had to go to a camp. Now the trend is actually opposite. They're slowing everything down and going back to when dinosaurs roamed the earth in the 70s and 80s. And we didn't make college decisions until our senior year in high school or possibly our postgraduate year. If we look at sports, and Pat, I'd like for you to touch on this. What might be considered new with regard to baseball, but hockey and football have been utilizing postgraduate, whether it's Bridgeton or Milford Academy for football and hockey. My very good friend went to Cardigan. Postgraduate and reclassification has been around for decades. So this really isn't anything new, is it, Pat? With regard to, getting into these type of higher level academic schools from an athletic or an academic perspective.
No, not at all. And again, not a requirement here, but I bet, I bet I'd use the percentage of about 70% of our male athletes at Deerfield decide on their own to reclass. I think for instance, is for one reason is the athletic piece, and they're looking down the road at the big picture and everything else. I think too, transitioning to these schools, you mentioned Auburn High School, which is a wonderful high school, going from Auburn to Lawrence Academy for your son Tyler, was a big step, as it is, coming from any school to Deerfield, and not putting down public high schools or Catholic high schools or day schools or anything else. It's a big jump. So I think the reclassification there helps as well. So I think it's making the most of your opportunities. If you're a 10th grader and you want to come in, to Deerfield, we like the reclass because you're going to get 3 years here instead of 2. You're going to be able to network more. You're going to be able to meet people from around the world. You're going to make more friends, cultivate more relationships, all that. That's all a part of it. We get you for an extra year, obviously, in the baseball program. But for all the reasons, all the above, I think there are very few reasons as to why not to reclassify, in my opinion.
Well, a few questions that have come in. I want to say thank you to everyone that is watching, especially William McGurk. Miss you, Captain. And then I have a question, and this, I guess, might be related to you, Pat, in some way, because you're more of the younger ages. Maybe you have some understanding of this as far as you mentioned 9th grade. Someone has a young 7th grader turning 13 in July. Parents are discussing holding back, reclassing a year, so he's better prepared physically with regard to sports. We have experience in that, but Pat, what do you feel like that extra year, 9th grade wise, allowed your children to benefit from over and above, anything to do with athletics?
Yeah, growing up, maturing, becoming more physical. I think as a reclassified 9th grader, you get a real chance to contribute to varsity, as opposed to an 8th grader coming right into 9th grade. I guess maybe at that time you're 14, just turning 14. And if you're playing in prep school baseball, you could be facing a 19-year-old pitcher as a 14-year-old hitter. I think that's a disadvantage for the 14-year-old. I'm sorry. We've even had some postgraduates who have turned 20 here their senior year, or seniors that have turned 20 their senior year here. They're eligible as long as they don't turn 20 before the start of the school season. A couple of those guys went on to play Ivy League baseball. So Ivy Leagues aren't opposed to the older student. Again, I think just bigger, faster, stronger, smarter, more mature.
Best of luck this year at Deerfield and obviously in the future at Masters.
Thank you, Walter. Again, I really appreciate all that you do for these families. Your information is spot on. I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, sir. Thank you so much. Now, parents, I want to let you know some Division II schools are starting collectives. Division I schools are adding more and more to their financial collectives that are paying student athletes. So if we look at the bigger picture, and your student athlete says, Mom, Dad, I really want to try to be the best I can be, and I want to go to college. I want to be a pharmacist. I want to be an architect. I want to be an accountant. I want to be a doctor. Okay, this is simply leverage. More resources providing more opportunities. That's it. We heard from a coach, a teacher, a college advisor, Pat Moriarty. We're going to hear from 2 students that are now in their mid 30s that are going to be able to talk candidly about their experience and what the post-grad school allowed their future to become. This is not to try to be a promotional segment to advertise. This is simply meant to say, if your student athlete has not had the opportunity to achieve what they feel that they're capable of achieving, you do have options. You have options over and above a JUCO. You have options over and above Division II, Division III. You have options. That's what this is about, and this is only what this is about. Boy, oh boy, the messages have been coming in loud and clear. I'm hearing the message loud and clear, but I think the vast majority of people, parents particularly, are missing my point. And you may say to me, well, Walt, what is your point? And I want to read some of these so I don't get them wrong. And the biggest thing is I'm paraphrasing a substantial amount of responses. Why delay life for a pipe dream? This is just, many of these people are just baseball dads and moms who can't accept that their kid is going to ride the pine in college. It's a complete waste of time, i.e., reclassifying or postgrad. To get through, you should just get through high school in 4 years and move the heck on. Now, I get that, and I understand where you're coming from, but you're missing my point, because our topic, both last night and tonight, about post-grad, reclassification, what have you, isn't about chasing playing time, isn't about chasing college athletics or trying to be the big dog older within the realm of high school athletics. That's not it at all. In fact, I'm not really even talking about trying to become the oldest kid at the high school level so that you can have a great season or create great statistics for the college opportunities. In fact, I'm not discussing that point at all. This evening, as well as last evening's episode, sponsored by Proline Balls, while I was over at the Columbus at the ABCA, had a great opportunity to talk to a lot of college coaches about the Proline Ball, and boy, do they like them. Not only like them, they love them. So I want to let everyone know there's a reason why the professional hitters, the college coaches, the professional hitting instructors all use the Proline Ball. Not only is it because it's durable, but it offers the ability to train against velocity and spin without the fear of getting hurt. You do not want to get a season-ending injury, whether it's a wrist, a hamate, or anything with your shin or your ankle at this time of the year. So I encourage you to go down prolineballs.com, both for baseballs as well as softballs. Put the discount code BlueBook, and hit apply code, and you'll get a 15% discount. What I really hope to do this evening, I do have a guest, and this guest attended a postgraduate school in 2014. I'm going to let this particular young man share his story, but I wanted to gain perspective for those families that are sitting saying, I don't know, is this right for us? Is this not right for us? Is this something that we should consider? What I want to do is simply present an option, nothing more. If you think that the option is valid and you think it may benefit your son or daughter, fantastic. That's the point of spending this time and sharing this information with you. Let's just talk about the bigger experience. Mr. Coppins in Metairie, Louisiana. I assume you're in Metairie. Good evening, sir.
What's up, Big Wald? How you doing?
First and foremost, how old are you today, Mr. Coppins?
I'm 30 now.
Okay. And you and I met back in the fall of 2011, I believe. Had you, prior to meeting Big Walt, ever heard of the term postgraduate?
No, absolutely not. It's just junior college.
All right. And
It's the
so,
only avenue.
for those of you that are not familiar with Greater New Orleans, there is a high school league. It's called the Catholic League. It is a historic and prestigious grouping of schools, obviously Catholic high schools, um, some all boys, such as the school that Mason attended, a Jesuit high school in New Orleans, Louisiana. But all of the Catholic schools are really elite academics. But for the vast majority of graduates that are playing sports, could we agree that many of them look to a school in the green and yellow Delgado Junior College in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, it was a lot of funneling from the Catholic League to Delgado, I would say.
So one of the questions that I want to ask you directly, because I've been talking to parents, and if you could speak loudly and clearly when you answer this, when you were in high school at Jesuit, did anyone ever tell you that you were going to have the ability to play in college? Did they say to you, "Oh yeah, you're going to play Division One, Division Two, or even JUCO at Delgado"?
No, quite the opposite, actually. I didn't play at all on the team, on the high school team at Jesuit.
All right. And so, how many years did you attend Jesuit?
3. Yeah, 3 years.
And before that, another Catholic league school. Will
Mhm.
leave that out. Brother Martin, right?
Yep.
Okay. And so, I want parents to understand. I'm not going to be an echo, and I'm not going to continue to echo Mason. Um, uh, Mason and I, for 6 years and until I left Louisiana, basically would work extremely hard. And Mason was the hardest working young man on a consistent daily basis. And one day his uncle, Kirk, had come to me and said, "Okay, I want to know what's the real deal." Now, for the sake of this discussion, we will say that Mason's uncles were extremely talented baseball players, one of which played in the Red Sox minor league system. So basically, he was calling me out saying, "What are we doing? Are you feeding the dream, or does he really have an opportunity?" And so my answer back to his uncle Kirk at the time was absolutely 100%. And I think he has to make a position change, and I think he should do a postgraduate year, which led to a dinner with Mason's mom, Miss Robin, and Kirk, and Mason and myself. So at that dinner, do you remember anything that we talked about that maybe resonates with you today in 2013 when we started to broach the topic of postgraduate school?
Yeah, just the opportunities that a prep school would bring outside of a junior college where, you would lose eligibility. You'd have to compete for 3 outfield spots across 40 people. It just seemed like the opportunity was a lot larger than going to a junior college. And those precious years that you get in college, you're not necessarily wasting them at a junior college. You have the opportunity to go right into a bigger program without having to, do a stepping stone while you're in college.
Now, prior to you leaving New Orleans, had you ever been in an area with the climate at the Salisbury School in Connecticut?
No, not at all. I'm an expert now, though.
But let's also say for the record that that year that Mason attended Salisbury was one of the worst on record as far as snowfall and temperature. Just talk a little bit about your experience as a student. Let's leave baseball for last. As a student at Salisbury, can you talk about some of the things that kind of are memorable for you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it was one of the most eye-opening years I had, just in the way that it just allowed me to grow up quickly. I'm across the country from my entire family. I have to do my own laundry. I have to do, take care of my food. I have to, have all these responsibilities that you really don't necessarily have when you're in high school at home. And on top of that, the people that I meet that I met were from across the entire world, and there's still people that I speak with today. And, I'm in a couple of weddings from my Salisbury teammates and roommates there. So, I had some lifelong friends, and they're all across the country, all across the world. And, just that was incredibly eye opening. It just shows you there's a whole world out there. And it also got me out of my comfort zone. It's that kind of that saying of, you know, trying to be uncomfortable. It just is such an important aspect, to growing. And I think that was a huge stepping stone or first step in my growth as a man, as well as a baseball player, obviously. But mainly the the things that I really took out of it were great friends. Got to really grow up before going to college, which I thought gave me a head start when I was at Northeastern. And just the eye-opening aspects of being somewhere across the country by yourself in the middle of a small town. You just have to do a little bit of growing up, and I thought it gave me that in a healthy way.
Now, for the sake of discussion, I'm going to let Mason say this without me saying this. Could you talk, please, about the level of athletics at Salisbury? Not only the caliber of competition,
Mhm.
but the caliber of your team, please.
Yeah, absolutely. We had one of the best teams, if not high school teams that I've played on. We had 13 collegiate players on that. Most of those were Division One. Won a World Series with Vanderbilt, and then we had 5 or 6 draft picks off that team, and it pushed me every day to get better. And because you look next to you, and there's a Division One, top D1 school shortstop or catcher or the left fielder, and it just pushes you, um, to really want to get better and to be on par with these types of talents.
Now, I want to Mason's team in 2014. He attended the Salisbury School in Salisbury, Connecticut. Has been voted as the #1 team in the history, which has been going on for well over a century with regard to baseball, the best team of all time. Now, it was a coincidence that Mason happened to land at Salisbury. His coach at the time, John Toffey. But my point is that one of the bigger picture points of this discussion is Mason to this day is still talking to friends and associates that he had met not only on the baseball team but at Salisbury. And
Mhm.
my bigger question for you, Mason, that I want parents to understand is, and I want to emphasize this: I know for a fact that you were told that you probably would not play in college, any level of college. Would that be accurate?
Yeah,
Okay.
100%.
Okay. And not only did you play college baseball, but you started essentially 4 years of college baseball at Northeastern University. You made an NCAA regional. You played Division I athletics. You were a 2-year participant and a Silver Slugger Award winner in the prestigious elite college summer baseball league of the Cape Cod League. Would you say that Salisbury contributed to your readiness to be an active participant at the college level as well as the summer college baseball levels that you ultimately played at?
Yeah, absolutely. It pushed me into a level of competition that wasn't was unlikely to come across at a regular high school. You have elite players from across the region in the Northeast, but there's also some folks from California that came across. So you really curating a very elite group of baseball players, and being around that, just being around better players. The game's faster. It makes you better because you either have to get to speed or you get left behind. So I think um, it absolutely shot me into the stratosphere when it comes to my confidence as well, because that now I'm playing again with these high school kids that are committed to these large programs, and I'm keeping up with them, and I'm like, okay, now I can perform. And it also gave me that level of confidence too. So I think the level of play and the confidence that it gave me was something that I certainly wouldn't have gotten anywhere else.
I guess my last question to you is I've been trying to allow parents to understand from a wider lens that the experience at Salisbury was a much bigger deal than just baseball, that it was a
Hmm.
much more prestigious academic opportunity, a cultural opportunity. I guess if you could go back to your high school year at Jesuit, not knowing anything about Salisbury, how would you sum up what that 1 year of your life? I think back of when you won a race. I don't know, remember the race, but you set a record. I think about all the other things that you had accomplished while at Salisbury over and above just baseball. But if you could summarize, looking back as now a 30-year-old man, what do you think that 1 year of your life provided for you with regard to just becoming a better prepared man as an adult?
Yeah, I think it gave me the confirmation that I can live on my own and I can meet friends from all over, and I can play at a certain level, and it is something that I want to send my kids to, just because of how beneficial it was to me. It really did help me grow up, and you get to meet people from different cultures across the world. You get to, play with people across the country, and just the entire experience was something that I'll never forget. And I certainly think it changed my trajectory as a man and as a baseball player. It put me in, a different level confidence wise, and knowing that I can go somewhere where you could drop me anywhere and I can get comfortable, I can adapt, and I can just kind of just be put in the situation and be able to handle it. And I think that's so important for young kids, because you want to be tested when you're getting older. But your first test usually is when you leave for college. And when I played at Northeastern, a lot of the kids, they were trying to get up to speed with living away and doing their own laundry and handling life outside of their mom and dad helping them. And I also think it gave me a head start on, the baseball side of it, because I'm not worrying about, laundry and all these other aspects. I already have all that down. I know I can meet people. I know I can, do all these things because I just did it. So I also think it's very beneficial in kind of kickstarting your growth as a man. And it's something that, I will never take for granted. It's probably one of the best years of my life. Eye opening, and what an experience.
Well, I want to let people know that Mason Coppins is considered the fourth Beede, the third son, the second brother to Kyle and Tyler Beede. He now knows things like the bean pot. He knows how to park his car. He knows all. He knows about the blizzards. He knows all about the snow in New England.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing is a young man from Metairie, Louisiana, who has no idea of what Boston is like, literally drops into Huntington Avenue in the middle, and Commonwealth Avenue, the middle of Boston, Massachusetts, with the green line running right through it, and just has to figure it all out. But because of that year at Salisbury, it really helped him prepare, and it helped his mother prepare, because we don't think about that dynamic. Parents, we think we're prepared, but when our children leave us and the nest is empty, so to speak, it's hard. It's a hard experience. So I know Miss Robin had to deal with that in that year at Salisbury. It was a tough one on a myriad of different levels, but it definitely helped Mason prepare for college. Thank you so much, Mason. I appreciate your time. Please say hi to mom, and I really appreciate you taking the time to join me.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime, Big Walt.
All right, love you, Captain.
Take care. I love you too.
All right, man. I'll talk
All
to
right.
you.
Sounds good.
So I want parents to know one thing, that I'm glad Mason was able to join. I hope that you have the time to listen to that. Please, for the love of goodness, listen to that young man, 30 years old. It's not about baseball. For the love of goodness, it's not just about baseball. And this is why I wanted so aggressively, and so I really was adamant about making sure that I got this message out. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you all next week.